Hey, welcome back to Mixing It with Mags. Today we're going to look at using yeast as a leavening ingredient, and we're going to use that in making some pizza dough and eventually some pizza. Okay, but first I'm going to talk about the equipment you're going to need. So for making the yeast or getting the yeast going, you're going to need a little bowl like this that you're going to put your water, your sugar, and your yeast into. And then I've got another bowl here. I'm going to put some warm water in, and then we'll sit the yeast in there just to keep the temperature warm enough so it makes the yeast activate. You're going to need a liquid measure for measuring out your water, measuring spoons, your half cup and 1 cup measuring cups. You're going to need 2 different bowls, one for mixing your dough in it eventually, and then I've already pre-mixed my 2 different types of flours and my salt in this one. Okay, and now I'm going to talk about ingredients. First, for the actual pizza dough, you're going to need some yeast. You're going to need about 7 mils of yeast, active dry yeast. Okay, you're going to need a little sugar for food to activate the yeast. You're going to need that water I was talking about in the liquid measuring cup. I'm using 2 types of flour again. I'm using a whole wheat flour and a white flour. Okay, and then I've got my salt and olive oil that's going to go in the dough. For the toppings, it's pretty simple. I went and bought a can of pizza sauce. Okay, if you don't have that, you've got tomato sauce and tomato paste at home, a 3-to-1 ratio of the sauce to the paste, so 3 times the amount of sauce to 1 amount of paste, pepperoni, and then I grated up some mozzarella cheese in here as well. Again, you can put whatever toppings you want on your pizza. You can go with pepperoni, you can go with mushrooms, you can go with peppers, onions, olives. It's endless. It's your pizza. You top it the way you are. Okay, so stay tuned. We're going to come back and we're going to start mixing up get the yeast activated. Okay, so if I forgot to tell you at the beginning, make sure that you preheat your oven, probably just before you start making your dough. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees. That's a pretty hot oven, so be careful when we're transferring pizza in and out. You're also going to need a pizza plate, or even a pie plate will work. If you don't have either of those, a baking sheet, just a square baking sheet, you can bake it on there, it's just fine. You'll need a little bit of oil, or if you've got cornmeal at home, that works really well, or shortening is another great option to grease either one of those items with before you put your pizza dough on it. Okay, so active yeast is dormant in its dry state, and in order to wake it up, we've got to add a few things. We've got to add moisture, we've got to add heat, and we got to add food. Okay, so the food is sugar. So I've got my 2 mils of regular white sugar. I'm going to put that in the bowl. The heat and the liquid comes together in the temperature of warm water, or in the way of warm water. So this is about 110 degrees, 120 degrees. You don't want boiling hot water because that'll kill the yeast. And if cold water, it's not going to activate at all. So I'm going to dissolve those 2 together in my little bowl here. Okay. Set aside my equipment, clean up as we go. Okay. Just going to get out a little spoon here. And then I'm going to give my sugar and water a little stir to dissolve that. Then I'm going to sprinkle my yeast. So this is my yeast here. I'm going to sprinkle that over top. Okay. And just give it a slight gentle turn. Okay, you're not stirring, you're not mixing it a lot, you're just giving it a little turn. And then, like I said, I'm going to sit my yeast in this nice little warm bath of water here, just so it keeps the temperature, keeps it at the right temperature to activate the yeast. You're going to set that aside for about 10 minutes, okay? And then when it starts to become really, really foamy, then it's ready to go, and then we'll start making the dough. So stay tuned. Okay, I just wanted to show you what it would look like when the yeast starts to foamy. This has only been sitting for maybe about 3 or 4 minutes, and you can see already that the yeast is starting to break down and it's starting to create a nice foamy mixture. You still want to let it sit for about another 5 minutes. It should be almost like a dome of foam over top of the water when it's done, but I just wanted to give you a little peek. So if you see this happening in your bowl, don't panic. It's supposed to do that. Hey, welcome back. As you can see, my yeast mixture here is nice and foamy. It's well activated. We're ready to start making that dough. Okay, so you can just take that mixture out of the thing, maybe wipe off the bottom so you don't get any excess water. You're going to transfer that, and make sure you get it all in there. You're going to transfer that to your medium bowl. Okay, and then you can just discard that water bath that you had it sitting in. Okay. To your yeast mixture, you're going to add a tablespoon of oil. I'm choosing olive oil. It's a healthier oil. Okay, then using, say, corn oil and stuff like that. So a tablespoon of olive oil into there. And then I'm just going to give that a little gentle stir around just to mix it in. Okay, and then I'm going to add about half of my flour and salt mixture here. So I've got my 2 types of flour and my salt already pre-mixed, and I'm going to dump about half of it in. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact, okay, but that's probably about half of the mixture, and I'm going to mix that in. Okay, but it's very sticky, and then I'm just going to gradually add a little bit at a time until I get the right consistency I'm looking for. We don't want a dough that is super stiff, and we don't want a dough that is super dry either. Okay, but you'll probably find a lot of your moisture is going to be in the middle of the dough. But when we knead the dough later on, that'll take care of that moisture in the middle. Okay, so come back and I'll have some dough ready for you and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so while mixing the dough, I realized that you got to also take into consideration that sometimes flour has more moisture content in it or less. Okay, and so I ended up not using quite of all my flour that was in the bowl, but I've got the right consistency here. Now I'm just going to show you how to knead your dough. So you're going to use the heel of your hand. You're going to push. You're going to fold it over, turn it, and push down. Okay, and you're going to do this for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes on a lightly floured surface. This will also help incorporate any more of the moisture that happens to be in there that you don't want, you know, obviously making sticky, wet dough. Okay, you should have a nice, soft, pliable dough, and I'll show you that in just a little second here. Okay, so like I said, while your pizza dough is resting or rising a little bit, that's a good time to start making your fixins. So I already grated up my, I don't know, a little over half a cup of mozzarella cheese. Again, you can put as much cheese on as you want. And then the minions that are going to eat this pizza, they like their pizza pretty simple. So it's going to be pepperoni on one side, just cheese on the other. So to do the pepperoni, I've got these big pepperoni circles like this. 3 or 4 of those would probably cover the whole thing. Not so good. So I'm going to cut them into quarters. And it's just simply, I cut them into quarters like that. Then you can sprinkle those around on the pizza when and how you want to. Okay, so it's very, very simple preparation. Okay, but this would be your time. You would slice up your peppers, you would slice up your mushrooms, make sure you wash them first. I've opened up my can of tomato sauce, so I've got everything ready so that we can start to roll out the pizza and then transfer it over to the pizza plate after. Okay, so we're going to roll out the pizza dough now. I've lightly dusted my countertop again. I've got my pizza dough here. It's risen a little bit. It's nice and still, soft and pliable, perfect for rolling it out. So I'm going to put that on there. Okay, it's also a good idea to take a little bit of flour and just roll it onto or put it on your roller. If you don't have a roller at home, you can just push this dough out with your fingers. It would work just fine. When you're rolling, make sure you roll from the center out. Okay, don't just roll back and forth, because you'll have no dough in the middle and you've just pushed it all to the ends. Okay, so kind of roll it out in a circle, or in from the center out in many directions here, until you get to the thickness of crust you would like. If you'd like a thin crust, then you're going to roll it fairly thin. If you like a thicker crust, like we do here, you're going to leave it a little bit. Okay, and try and get it to as much of a circle shape as you can. It's not going to be perfect, people. Okay, unless you're a professional pizza spinner or something like that. You can spin them up in the air and make them nice and round that way. Okay, this is a very quick, easy pizza dough. You may have a recipe at home that you would like to use, or your bread machine that you have, or something like that makes pizza dough, and by all means you can do that. Once you've got it kind of in a circle like that, you're going to transfer it to your, and I put shortening on this one. So I'm going to transfer it to here, and then like I said, if you want to, you can push it out into a different shape you want. And then I'm just crimping up the edges, sort of to make a crust on it, an outer edge. And this way too, you can also give it more of that traditional circular pizza dough or pizza crust kind of shape to it. Okay? And again, I'm just pushing it back out with my fingers and crimping it sort of at the same time to try and even it out. You may have areas that are a little bit thicker. It's okay. It's going to be just fine. Okay, so we've made our nice circular-ish pizza dough or crust ready to go. Now, you can build your pizza however you want to build your pizza. It's your pizza. You're going to eat it. Okay? I build mine by putting the sauce on first, then the toppings, then the cheese. Other people do the sauce, then they do the cheese, and then they put the toppings on top. Totally fine. You build your pizza however you want. Okay? So I'm going to take the pizza sauce and I'm going to spread some around on my pizza. You're going to need about, probably about 100 mils of pizza sauce, I would imagine, for something about this big. So this can would actually do probably a couple pizzas this size. Okay, so if you want to and you want to double it and you've got more people to feed, then by all means you can make twice the amount of pizza dough and you can make 2 different pizzas and different flavored pizzas. Be creative. Okay, and then I just put my pepperoni on one half, like so. You can layer them however you want. Probably cut up a little bit too much pepperoni than I'm actually going to need. Better to have too much, I say, than to have too little and then have to try and cut some more up on the fly. Okay, so that's good. And then on top of all of this, I'm sprinkling my mozzarella cheese. And you want to try and keep the cheese as much as you can inside the pizza, obviously, or else it's going to just burn on the outside of the pizza plate. Again, creating more cleanup that a lot of you don't necessarily like. And there we go. If you had Parmesan cheese at home, you can sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on top of this. If you have different types of cheese, like I said, be creative and have fun making your pizza. We're going to pop it in the oven now. 450 degrees, really hot. Open the door fully, slide it into the middle, and then set your timer for about 16 to 18 minutes, my recipe says. Again, go for the lowest time, so timer, 16 minutes, hit start, come back, we'll take a look at it after 16 minutes, see how it goes. Okay, so just so you know, this only took 13 and a half minutes to cook this pizza. When it's done, crust should start going a nice golden brown. Cheese should be completely melted. It's gone a nice golden color. It'll actually start bubbling, and it was when I first opened up the oven and took a look at it. Let it sit for about 2 to 3 minutes just to firm up the cheese a little bit before you cut into it so you don't just end up pushing all the toppings right off the pizza. But this is looking really good. I'm sure my kids can't wait to dig in. I'm going to slice it up off camera and then let them have a piece of it. So thanks a lot again for... Hit that like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you have a good time making pizza and it turns out really well. Leave me a comment if you want on how yours turned out. Thanks.